Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Biology from Mrs. Collie's home. This is my third season, and it's the first episode of the third season. And I wish I could say I were really excited about it, like I would be if like this was Stranger Things season 4 or something. But you know, trusting God to keep us all learning, even in this situation. So I hope you enjoyed the time you had yesterday to be able to work on your formal lab report background and procedure, which I will remind you again is due this Friday, like at midnight. Has to be typed, does not have to be entered into the template. And it's only the background and the procedure. Make sure your background has references like we talked about. But you don't have to have all those in the proper format or anything. You can just put like a 1 in parentheses next to the reference if it's for your book, and then, you know, list number 1 as being your book. That's enough. You don't even have to get specific about that. Just so that I know that you are finding references for your information. Today is a chapel day, and I know we're going to have a little bit shorter classes. I'm going to have you guys go through the notes on 2 kingdoms, actually, really quickly. I think I mentioned to you that we're not going to really cover the kingdoms Protista and Fungi with much more new information than you had in the 7th grade. But what we are going to do different than we did in the 7th grade was we're going to be able to look at a lot of those representatives of those kingdoms as they appear under the microscope. And totally would have liked for you guys to be looking under the microscopes today and tomorrow, but God had something else in mind. So I do have a plan, and I'll tell you more about that. But for today, I need to cover those kingdoms relatively quickly. I'm going to do that through a couple of videos that I will have you watch from Mr. Anderson at Bozeman Science. And then I'm actually going to give you my notes on these 2 kingdoms already all filled out. And I'm not going to read them to you like word by word, but I will hit the highlights here. So we're going to start with that, and then I'm going to have you watch the video. So here we go. Okay, so before we get into any specifics about those 2 kingdoms, I have to talk to you a little bit about these things called Koch's postulates. Robert Koch is sometimes known as the father of bacteriology, and he really played a pivotal role in developing what's called the germ theory, which is how, like, the idea that, hey, maybe people get sick because they have an infectious agent living in their body, like a bacterium or a virus or some other sort of pathogen, like a fungal pathogen or some sort of worm or something. And at the time that he worked, people, you know, the microscope and what we could see under the microscope was relatively a new thing. And so people didn't know that there were tiny little things all around them that could potentially make them sick. So he did a lot of research to show that, to find the causes for different diseases. And in the process, he developed sort of these steps that are still followed today if somebody wants to like prove that a particular disease is caused by a particular pathogen. And those steps are called the Koch's postulates. And so they're listed here, and I won't read them to you because they're kind of easier to understand if you look at the picture that basically kind of says the same thing. But let's say that you are studying a particular disease and you suspect that the disease is caused by some sort of infectious agent. What you would have to do to prove that that was the cause of the disease is to take a sample from a healthy organism. In this case, they took blood, and take a sample from a diseased organism and show that the suspected disease-causing agent is only present in the diseased organism. So in this case, they were growing it up on a petri dish, and they saw that that agent was not in the healthy organism, but they could find it in the diseased organism. Then you have to purify that particular agent. In this case, this is a bacterium, and inject a healthy organism with that, your proposed causative agent, which you've purified, and you need to see if they will develop the disease. And that's step 3. And then the last step is to, once they've developed the disease, to find the causative agent, the suspected causative agent in their bodies, like you've re-isolated it from their bodies. So that series of steps is still followed today. If ever we want to figure out what's causing a particular sickness, for example, like coronavirus, then these are the kinds of steps that need to be followed. Oh, here's my kitty. She's actually not mine. She's the neighborhood cat, but she thinks she's ours and comes to visit a lot. Her name's Buttercup. Say hi, Buttercup. Okay. So those are Cox's postulates. All right, let's go to the kingdom Protista. And I see here that I've spelled it kingdom, which is stupid. So I'll fix that probably before I have Mrs. Williams make copies for you, but not going to redo the video. Okay, so like I told you before, the kingdom Protista is called the catch-all kingdom. And basically anything that's eukaryotic but doesn't belong in plant or fungi or animal gets thrown in the kingdom Protista. There's lots of different variety. I'll let you read through and see what I mean by that. There's 3 main types of protist. There's the protozoa, which are the animal-like protist. There are the algae, which are the plant-like protist, and then there's the fungus-like protist. So all of them have each of them has characteristics that are similar to the organisms in the other kingdom, but for one reason or another are not able to be classified as a plant or an animal or a fungus. Okay, protists are really important in our environment and in our world for a lot of reasons. They play a key role in food chains as plankton, like in the ocean. If the plankton in the ocean died, all of the world's sea creatures would die, because ultimately they're the bottom. The plankton is the bottom of the food chain for the ocean organisms. That's true for a lot of lakes as well. The fungi serve as decomposers. There's different illnesses that are caused by protists, which we'll talk about in a minute. The protists include the seaweed and are included in this kingdom. And so that's a really important source of food for humans. And it's been estimated that algae in the form of plankton produce 80 to 85% of the world's oxygen. So super important. Okay, we're going to focus mostly on the protozoans instead of the algae this year. And there's basic facts about protozoa here. Most protozoans are completely unicellular, and most of them are able to move by the means of, there's some different ways that they can move, and most of them live in the water. We say that they're the animal-like protist, and the way that they're like animals is that they're usually able to move. They don't have any cell walls. Yeah, and they can't photosynthesize. They have to eat, so they are heterotrophic. Okay, there's 4 major protozoan phyla. So you have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and under the kingdom Protista, there's 4 major types of animal-like protists. There's the phylum Sarcodina, and these 4 phyla are the organisms are grouped into the specific phylum mostly on the basis of kind of like how they move. Not only that, but mostly how they move. So for example, the phylum Sarcodina uses pseudopodia for movement, or pseudopods. So like the amoeba, extensions of the cytoplasm that allow them to kind of ooze through their environment. That's the phylum Sarcodina. Phylum Silifora, as you might imagine, have cilia. So for example, the paramecium has these little hair-like structures. Most are free swimming. The phylum Sporozoa, the name suggests that they form spores. They actually don't move as adults, and they're all parasitic. So we have amoeboid movement, we have cilia moving, we have no movement. And then with the phylum Zoomastagina, they're the ones that have a flagella. So here's the flagella here in this trypanosome. A trypanosome is a type of protozoan that causes African sleeping sickness. Plasmodia is an example of a sporozoa. Plasmodia causes malaria. And then these other guys are free swimming in like fresh water. Okay, so like besides looking at a lot of these guys under the microscope, hopefully some of which will be alive. I came to pick them up at school today when UPS delivered them. Then we will be, that's kind of all we'll be talking about the protist in specific. I do need to hit on the kingdom fungi. And again, I'll just try to hit the main points. So the organisms in the kingdom fungi are obviously all in their own kingdom. So they're eukaryotic. Most of them are multicellular. They used to be classified as plants, but they're not anymore because their cell walls are different and they don't have specific like tissues. They don't have organized tissues like plants do. Also, most importantly, they're not photosynthetic. So, you know, and all plants are photosynthetic. Fungi obtain nutrients in a lot of different ways. Certain ones feed on dead things, others feed on living things. They usually, like, even though they do eat, they don't normally eat by taking, like by ingestion where they take food into their bodies. Instead, they like secrete their digestive enzymes like outside of their body, and the whatever they're feeding on kind of gets broken down outside of the fungus, and then the nutrients just kind of absorb through their cells. Fungi are important for a lot of different reasons. I think you probably are familiar with a lot of them. One fungi is particularly famous for one fungus is particularly famous for giving us the first antibiotic, which you probably have been thinking about that with your study of antibiotic sensitivity. We have yeast. Fungi are used in genetic engineering like bacteria are, but they're most famous, I guess you would say, for their biological role as decomposers. There are fungi that are destructive. So these are like examples of ways that fungi are beneficial. This list here is a list of different fungi that cause trouble in various ways. And sometimes it has to do with human illness, sometimes it has to do with plant disease, sometimes it has to do with the fungus like eating our homes. Like there are fungi that literally like to eat like drywall and things like that. So you can take a look at that list to be familiar with those examples, but that's probably all that I'm going to say about them right now. And so at this point, I'm going to have you watch those videos that I talked about. And once you watch I don't know if you'll be able to finish them with the chapel schedule and everything, but if not, we'll finish them tomorrow, and then we'll be able to start looking at things under the microscope, the COVID online teacher way. So I hope you guys have a great day. As always, if you need anything, you just email me and I'll be available. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. I had to remember how to turn it off. It's been a while. Here we go.